we have one cargo, the same layout, but from two different carriers, we may get two different prices. This is the exact same cargo, same dimensions, same weight, and also same destination. Today I'm going to show you why that happens. So we'll take one shipment and organize it in three different ways. Basically, I will do it manually, based on experience and intuition, like it's mostly done. Second one will be LDM optimized approach, and the third one would be pallet optimized approach. And by the end of this video, you will know which pricing model works best for your cargo. Okay, before we look into the examples, let's look at two different business units that are driving the most groupage pricing in road freight. The first one is load meter, or LDM, and load meter is basically how much of the length of the trailer does your cargo occupy. And you can see it here, and it's basically the length of the total cargo. Even though you might have gaps in the width, the most important thing is the length. And let's say if we put it like this, our load meters obviously increase. So that is just to understand what is the load meter. The second one is pallet position. So basically how many pallet positions does your cargo occupy, regardless if of the exact dimensions, but like how many pallet units it occupies. So sometimes there might be gaps on the pallet unit itself, as you can see here, but regardless, you're paying also for that because your cargo profile is occupying that pallet position. Different regions, different networks, and different carriers favor one model over the other. And most shippers never ask what is the exact unit they're being quoted on, and that is mostly where the most surprises start. Okay, now let's use one cargo example for this video where we have 6 boxes, they're all fragile, and we will be placing them in our box trailer, 13.6 meters. This is quite common in Europe, and so everything will be the same, dimensions, weight, the cargo is exactly the same, just the layout strategy will be different, and you will also see the impact on the pricing depending of the layout. So first one, I will do it manually. So what I would do, I would just play a little bit of a Tetris. I'm sure you are doing this every single day in your job. Okay, quickly, manually, I could have rotated or tilted something, but like for the sake of being fast, I packed it like this. And as you can see here, I have close to 2.8 load meters, or around 8 pallet positions. And this is how most of the companies are shipping today. Based on intuition and experience, they're trying to put the ideal layout, or they're trying to condense all the cargo together. As you can see, I didn't really pay attention towards different units, but they're actually the drivers of the price that I will pay to the carrier. So now we're going to go into the second way, and that is strategy where we will fully optimize for the load meters. Okay, so now let's optimize fully for the load meters. So let's say we know that our carriers are providing us quote based on the load meters. We occupy the floor length in the trailer. So let's see how that will span. If I will use a little bit of a help here. So as you can see here, if we optimize the layout for the load meters, here we managed to get a little bit less, so 2.77 load meters, slightly better also for the pallet positions, here are 7. But regardless, we got improvement for the load meters, so something that we are being charged on, and this is the most important to reduce our freight costs. So we fully optimize our layout towards the minimal LDM value. Under an LDM based tariff, we here managed to slightly improve our placement, and we would get a cheaper quote, slightly cheaper quote for this one. So this layout strategy is definitely better than the manual we've done. Okay, now let's try to optimize for the pallet positions instead. So now, instead of trying to reduce the length we occupy, we will try to reduce the pallet positions the slots we occupy with our cargo. And that means grouping differently, stacking differently if the cargo allows it. In this case, it doesn't. So we will see what happens now. Right now, with the LDM optimized approach, we have 7 pallets. Now let's optimize for the pallets. Wow. So what happens here is totally different story. So again, it's the same cargo, exactly the same dimensions, same weight, same destination, just the strategy is different. So we optimize towards minimizing the pallet slots. And what we do get is totally different story. So we increased our load meters by close to 1 meter. However, we reduced the pallet slots occupied by 1. So in this case, if we are charged by pallet slots, we would save, what would that be? So around 15% of our costs just changing this layout if the carrier is basing the unit of the freight cost based on the pallet slots. However, if we would be paying based on the load meters, we would be way worse, and we would be paying around 50% more just based on this layout. And again, as you've seen, it is exactly the same cargo. We had different targets, and we got totally different freight costs. And the biggest mistake that I see is that companies do optimize their load, of course. However, they don't optimize it towards the unit they're being charged on. A simple rule of thumb is, if your carrier is charging you based on load meters, try to reduce the length of the occupied trailer. On the other hand, if they're charging based on pallet positions, try to reduce the slots occupied by your cargo. That includes also the gaps that are next to your cargos. So whenever you have wide and shallow cargo, try to go for that specific freight. Try to go with the carrier charging based on load meters or LDM. And whenever you have shapes that are not going the full width, but there are a lot of gaps that you can organize, that your cargo is a little bit deeper and longer instead of wide, you might actually save on pallet positions. So in those situations, try to go with the carriers that are basing their price on the pallets. So next time, before accepting the freight cost, ask yourself a question: is this quote based on the load meters, or is it based on pallet positions, and can I change something based on it, or is it some other carrier better for this specific shipment and the pricing? And that single question should change how you pack, stack, and present your cargo. And as we've seen today, exactly the same cargo and the boxes would cost us different depending if the pricing is based on different units.